Good morning, everybody. Another day on the S12. My name's Keegan. Welcome to back to the channel. And today we are going to be dropping the gas tank on the S12, upgrading the fuel pump, seeing what the tank looks like. This car's not too old, it's an 88, but you never know with the Nissans. Currently the supercharger is being worked on. We have a Volvo steering pump to mount up for the electric steering. We might address that rust, not in this episode, but later on. And we need to remove this front bumper to start mounting up the heat exchangers and everything, new radiator. And you know, just some small things, but this episode is going to be definitely focused on fuel and making sure that everything is good to go for the S12. This Ecotech motor does have an aftermarket fuel rail on it. It adapts from I want to say 10 AN down to the 8, and I can put who made this rail. They're like the only people who made rails for this, so that's cool. And then we're running 80-pound injectors from CZP, and that's really about it. That's all we have to work with now, and I think we're going to be using the factory lines. We're definitely going to cut them back down to the firewall just for cleanliness and mounting the fuel pressure regulator right. In true Datsun fashion, the tank is held up by two straps. They're two 17 mil, the longest 17 mil threads you'll ever see. This is the top of the tank. There's just a lot of things here. Biggest concern is what looks like solder. So that's great to figure out why that's done. We're about to drop that, and the tank should be down. Inside of this tank actually looks immaculate. There's some debris that I'm pretty sure I knocked in there. There was two return lines, one directly on the sending unit itself, and then one going through this. I'm gonna check this valve, but I'm gonna cut these off because we're not gonna need them, and it'll just clean up the tank a little bit. And I don't know why there's not a connector for these. That way you can easily drop everything. Can you tell the Nissan gas tank has exploded? Because it did. Use some snips, just cut the little tabs for the fuel pressure regulator. 100% that's what it was. I'm guessing it was failing, and that's why the car just kind of ran like shit before. I could get it to run, I could get it to idle, but under load it would just immediately fall on its face. So when I blew through one way, it was clean, and then when it tried the other way, it was just kind of not happy, but it would still allow it. So that, I believe that was the issue. We're gonna do the good old easy rebuild because I know the inside of this is immaculate, and we're just gonna spray this flat black. Shout out to nature helping out. Good as new. Well, the tank is drying out in the back. I've gone ahead and laid out the basic and lines that we're gonna do for the fueling system. Hopefully it should be good to go with the 85 and everything. There's two pieces on here. They're a little bit just way overkill, but I saw them on a Rob Don video. Wanted to try the pieces. There's some vibrant quick disconnect pieces, but we are going to reuse the 5/8 fuel lines that are in here. They should be good for 600 horse, which is something we will not be touching in this car for a very, very long time. So we've got 5/16 tube adapters off the tank. Those are going to go to and to cloth braided lines. Then those are going to connect again to the other ends of the cloth braided lines back to the hardline tubes, so we're right here. Then it's going to go to the front of the car, go off the tubes again onto the AN line conversion. Then we're going to use this to convert the AN lines back to soft lines. We're going to put the fuel filter before the fuel pressure regulator, and then it's going to be back to AN lines to soft lines, and then it's going to go to fuel rail, and that should be it. And then we're going to put these in line after the fuel pressure regulator, just before the fuel rails. Hopefully that makes sense. I know it's kind of a lot, but basically hard line off the tank to soft line, back to hard line, back to soft line, and that's it. Hopefully it's not totally dark here. We've used the baby pipe cutter around the first fuel line to kind of get the barb off. As you can see with this barb, there's a little lip there to hold rubber hoses when they go on, so when you clamp it, it stays. So we pop that one off, and we're gonna put this fitting on. You take it and you disassemble it, and there's a little ring in there, and we'll show a preview in a second. Kind of me showing that fitting in there, push it in there, starting it, and there we go. And we're gonna do this for this one, and then we're gonna do it for that one as well. Burn out the light, hopefully that helps. This is the purge valve, I believe. Purge valve, vapor line. It's not relevant to us. We're probably gonna block it off like right here. But these are good to go, and when you're doing these, make sure that you bottom out the outermost fitting that goes to the actual AN. So make sure you slide these enough to get you enough room to hold it there before you tighten it. And again, these don't really bottom out, but you want to get them pretty snug. So we're still gonna have to do the pump on the bottom for this spaceship fuel looking, honestly amazing rubber mount going on. But we took a cutoff wheel to the top two nubs and knocked them off and got these 5/16 to -6 and adapters mounted on. The old spaceship unit out. I'm not sure if she was on her way out. She spit out some fuel. Definitely has this yellowed plastic, and the tip did end up cracking into the pickup hose. But the bottom of this is actually really cool the way it works. So this is a kind of like a travel hose for when the tank is super full, and it stops right here. So anything above this level is going to drop off fuel in this little nub right there, and the whole pickup just lined up on the bottom. I'd love to reuse it if that pump was a bit thicker, but I believe that pump is probably 2 or 3 times stronger and like half the size. And it's only got one hose clamp right now, but we have 1, 2, 3, 6 rubber grommets for both sides, all the way around, so I'm not too worried about it. It's not interfering with this, and the pickup still stops perfectly. Thankfully, I know that this is the bottom of the tank right here, so pretty happy with this. We are going to rewire up at the top, but this should be good to go for the sending unit. Pulled out the braided hose, and we are doing light mock-up. So I've kind of rolled the lip here, so that way the fuel pressure regulator can sit almost flush in that little groove. The inlet's going to be on the side, so I need to order a 90, but I've measured out. We've got this one right here, and we have a 180. That'll do something like that. And before I fully send this hose, I usually put duct tape. I'll like pull a thing of duct tape, split it in half, and do it around where I'm going to cut. And I would just use a cutoff wheel, go across real fast, and that'll keep anything from fraying, so you can easily slide these lines, the hose section right across, and you want to be able to see the hose flush with the bottom of the threads. And then we're just going to put it up in the vise. I usually put electrical tape on crescent wrenches, that way you can go around and not mar up the aluminum too bad. Been a day, our fuel tank is dry, beautiful, one color. We've got these Delphi weather connectors from Amazon, pretty easy to use. I don't know why I didn't get these a lot sooner. This is a 6-pin example. Do the one side and then do the other side. Surprisingly, this car didn't have it, so we resorted to violence. Not proud about it. We've got the female end done. I've got the male end just so I don't wire it backwards or anything. I am going to cut back all of these, so that way if I do need to service anything, I can just pop the plate off, pull the thing, and then not even have to worry about it. So we don't even need the lengths. Things together, put a little breather cap on that. That way I'm not dealing with any fumes. I'm sure it'll get eaten at a long time, but until then we're going to leave it. This breather goes into the fill neck, so we're going to leave those both alone. I did label these: sending unit, fuel temp sensor. This is a ground, and then that's the fuel pump positive. 16-inch lines from the face of that one to the face of that one, and that way anytime this tank is dropped, nothing's getting ripped out. And we went ahead and labeled this one as the pressure, and that one is the return. You can not blow through this one because there's a one-way valve. There's a check valve in the fuel pump. And this one you can just blow right back in the tank. And the outer line is the pressure, and then the inner one we're gonna do as a return. This way it feeds up in the fuel pump, or the regulator, and then to the side, and it'll be cleaner instead of having them cross. Got this clip sent. I've already test fit it, and it does go in. These two AM lines are done. When I was full sending them, they were starting to turn the hardline adapters, so I just went ahead and gave those a couple more cranks. That way it's just full sent, and we're still gonna leave it like this. So when we do go to test prime the fuel system, we can just pop this plate, jack this up a little bit, and connect the both, and they'll be good to go. Gone ahead and finished the entire fuel system, fully routed, couple segments, but we made it. And the 180 is done. Long line going across. I had it go around because we did end up putting the fuel filter in line right there. And I did it after the rails in case there is any rust or anything. It's able to get stopped before getting into the motor. And we've got, yeah, the one long line. Then we've got the return line going. I had the quit disconnect going right off the fuel pressure regulator. The only thing we haven't done yet is mount the fuel pressure regulator. Probably gonna do 2 studs. That way I can just weld it right here and then easily pop it on, pop it off. And that way if anything goes bad on the regulator, we don't have to drill into the car or grind those welds off. Because my luck, it'll go bad the second I weld it. So glad that's in there. We do need to get another brass fitting because that one just, you know, didn't make it. But I'm happy with the routing and everything. I know this looks a little weird, but once that's mounted up, it'll be a nice 90. That way no heat risk anything right there. And now we're gonna go ahead and throw on some fancy headers. Ram horn headers are on. Not sure who put these together, but I appreciate them giving you absolutely no room to work with on getting that bolt in. Glad we went ahead and put these on though, because the old header, not sure if I went over this already or not, it is cracked, which is apparently pretty common right down there. So that's together. Exhaust gasket, put a little bit of the exhaust goo on there too, just for got a flange on the way, and I got exhaust piping, so we'll size up doing up the exhaust. And the fuel system, did go ahead and put the regulator on. This one didn't just break instantly when I touched it. Progress. Another late night on the S12. We've got an Ecotech flange. I think I got this from CBM Motorsports, same people who did the oil filter. I should have just had one cut by the people. Shout out to SendCutSend. I did pick up a Flowmaster exhaust. These are chambered, meaning they don't have any fiberglass in them, so you don't have to worry about like the sound changing over time or having to break it in or anything. It's kind of what I'm going for. And I got a gasket, Remflex. Big fan of those, but we're not going to be putting it on for the mock-up. We do have one that came with the questionable headers, so we'll be using that for the mock-up, just to kind of have that spacing right. I got a tube kit from eBay. It's like 60 bucks. Just buy it. It's cheaper than getting all these pieces from any local parts places. Like a bend, a U-bend would be like 30-40 bucks from AutoZone or O'Reilly's. And when the Z had true duals, we were running a cherry bomb down the middle, so we're going to be including one of these, so I'm going to have to lop that off, clean off some of the mounting tabs, and we're going to be using that as kind of a resonator, see if it gets along with anything. The goal of this car is to be tastefully loud and also to be able to actually hear the supercharger. So we're going to stack that with the muffler and also try I like the sound chamber, exhaust chamber, where it kind of does a little U, goes back, and then it's kind of dead end, to kind of remove some drone or like prevent it. And if there is drone, you can always adjust it by shortening it, lengthening it. But yeah, now that we have headers officially on, we have a nice straight shot down that direction, and I'm not sure if we need to cross over yet, so we're gonna get underneath, investigate, and then start mocking things up with bolts, exhaust bolts, and everything. Starting from the front of the car to the back, we are gonna have to cross over and kind of go to the driver's side back. That's also better just because the fuel lines are right here to keep any vapor lock stuff. We have the flange in the vise because although it fits the Ecotech gasket that it's meant for, these headers are for slingshot, so they have a much smaller flange. Thankfully they came with this this gasket that we can use to trace, and I'll be able to drill a hole in this Remflex gasket to still be able to use it, and I have a template for drilling holes in that. So that's step number one. Uno momento. Light 90. Didn't realize that gap right there was so big, but we'll address that when we pull it off. Got it aimed down, and here's the exhaust. Can't see it. That's the point. Done this enough times, we're finally get the hang of things. Here she comes, down and around. 45. We do have a 90 in there. I know 90s are generally bad for exhaust, but should be all right. And then that's just for perching it so I can drop it from the other end and not break anything. Hardest half of the exhaust is mocked up, welded, fully sent. I am going to see if I can pick up a Dremel bit tomorrow, just kind of dig out the inside here. I could turn the heat up, but I can only go so hot, and it just wasn't really enough to kind of get it flush. But I'm pretty happy with how everything turned out. We're back, another day in paradise. Took a quick break because we didn't have the middle section for the exhaust and also the drive shaft. So we went ahead and knocked out the first half from the header down to about the cross member. And for the drive shaft, we're going to put that in first to kind of see how we need to route the back half of the drive shaft, because the factory Snaking was a little involved, and we're gonna see if we even have room for that with this drive shaft being a little bit bigger than factory. It's 3 inches now. And this is a telescoping drive shaft. They had to do it in steel. I know some of the new Hellcats and stuff have fancier, lighter telescoping versions, but shout out to Autosports Engineering. They make an adapter for the AR5 transmission that has a fixed output flange. So you just kind of bolt this in there. Then you got a fixed, I think this is a 1320 or 1310 U-joint that it just adapts right into. And I'm hoping that with the heavier steel weight, it kind of cuts down on vibrations and the car kind of rides normal. And then so we're gonna go ahead and do this first, get it all mounted up with everything. We have all the hardware, they provided it. We're gonna put Loctite on everything. So this should be fully sent. If the diff has to come out to be welded or anything, then we'll just knock that out. And then for the middle section, we have a flex pipe, and I'm also gonna be using these ball and socket style exhaust flanges. They never leak. If they do leak, you just do it tighter. It just works every time. Cherry bomb in. We've got the flex pipe above it on that end, and it is above the frame rail, so I should never have to worry about that splitting. And we did the right thing of putting our socket flange right here. So that way it's gonna go over the subframe. Hopefully it's not too dark. If it is, I apologize, and I'll just include a clip of both of them apart while I spray it black. But we're coming out of here, and we're gonna mock up the exhaust on this end, and then kind of connect the two in the middle. Everything's been full scent sprayed with some exhaust high temp paint. It's really just kind of to keep the welds from rusting. And I did go ahead and trim up the Ecotech flange to match the Solstice headers, so that way there's no overlap. It just kind of looks a little bit cleaner. And I didn't spray the muffler, and I didn't spray the accordion exhaust relief flange. Their underside shot of the exhaust all buttoned up. I know it's pretty far up there, but drops down from the header, comes down around, goes through underneath the trans, comes back through the resonator, shoots over the rear subframe, drops back down, and then I folded the factory kind of heat shield between the exhaust muffler and the gas tank, folded it back down, and then here it is. And I aimed it out towards the driver's side, so hopefully when this car shoots a little fun stuff, I'll be able to see it going on. Dropped off the LE5 stock intake, swapped it over for the LSJ intake that has these cool cooler cores inside. That does have 2 extra ports on the side for routing, so it's going to get a bit clustered in here. And we're definitely going to do something about relocating the oil filter out of there so it can kind of be moved over here, whatever that's going to take. And then with the supercharger, you can kind of see I've mocked it up in line with where the belt's going to be. And the big issue is that the snout needs to be relocated. Normally these are mounted in front wheel drive cars, the Cobalt SS's and some of the other engines with the LSJs. But they have all of this room to go across the front, and then the air filter can kind of be dropped right here or in front of the bumper. But I'm going to go ahead and prep this so I can have a friend weld it. And we're going to see if we can just relocate the throttle body mounting right about here. I'm going to tackle the oil relocation part of this kit. You know, in theory with the ZZP dual intake for the water to air cooler. Temp should be down a lot already. If I need an oil cooler, I'll get one, but there's no need to just add overkill if it's not needed yet. So I've got a quick oil summit relocation kit. And also I'm doing this because the oil for the Ecotech is kind of like the canister style, so it's right here. And with the supercharger, it's going to be taking up this PTFE steel braided hose lines. I've already got this one kind of started just to kind of show what's really happening. I didn't realize these were completely different than AN hose lines. So, you know, not a tutorial, just how I'm doing mine. Sure, the top was totally circled. I've separated the braided line from the PTFE plastic section. And then I used a flathead, kind of dug it out. And then I used a cutoff wheel just to kind of knock out the upper third section, just to make this easier, because with rubber and cloth, it's much easier to crush. But with this, kind of how it's ribbed, the intersection, you can still get it in and make sure it's flush with the upper section. You can see, hopefully, kind of right there. You want that inner plastic rim to be right up to the ledge because there's a lip up at the top here. And then you kind of get one freebie on one side where you can put this through on the other end. So I'm gonna do that now. I need more hands. So you kind of can't afford to mess up. Pull it up, pull it. Sometimes twisting helps. Be careful, braided lines will destroy your hands. On flush, that plastic piece is still flush in there. We have threads, and now we're gonna slide this slotted tube section into the plastic and then make sure to get it threaded down on those threads right there. Not moving at all. So I'm gonna do this side from scratch and kind of share along what's happening. And then I'll do both of those two on my own. I taped before cutting, so it's pretty easy to do, but you're gonna wanna make sure you have your bottom cap section already good to go. So I took out the kind of the crush washer-esque thing, and I'm just gonna go ahead and slide it on. So she's already on there for the pull-up. Now I'm gonna take the tape off and separate the plastic from the braided line. The inner crush washer clamp thing flush, but I do have this punch in to show how I was using the flathead to kind of pull out the braids. So I'd pull it over, pull it over, pull it over. Took the cutoff wheel to the top third section. And I can take this out and kind of show you again. It's good and flush along the top. And we are good to pull up the top hat, or the bottom hat, but the top part of the crush washer. We did as much of the top section as we could, did it by hand. You want to grab this middle one, make sure you're actually turning into the fitting itself. I fold up the cement wrappers for the fittings themselves, wrap them around it, and then put them in the vise. That way it minimizes marring. They do have super soft aluminum jaws you can do just for aluminum fittings, but these are the best because it's kind of a C on the outside, and then you can also take note on the inside to make sure you're not just pushing the actual hose out from the clamp itself. So I'm gonna put this kind of nice and on the top section, and also just take note and do it as gently as I can. Boom, free from the vise. We got both of them knocked out. I'm gonna go ahead and knock out the other line, the other two fittings, and then we can resume installing the oil relocator lab. Both lines are made. They do have an AN kind of like test kit where you put your respective AN line. They have a block off fitting for the size, and they have another fitting that goes on the other end. It basically has like a tire pressure valve in it, so you can up the PSI, maybe test like 100 PSI or whatever, and see if the line leaks. These will either leak or not leak, so I'm not gonna invest in that, but just so you guys know, I did end up getting a Mobile 1 filter, the M1303A, and then put -10 to 1/2 inch NPT fittings in this relocation kit. I'll put the part number in the description. But this way I have an accurate placement, so that way I can actually take the filter off, put it back on. I think we're gonna be aiming for about right here. I did put the radiator in, and I might not be using this fan, but ideally we're gonna try to have it about right there. That way it's still below the original location. And then I did already go ahead, take off the top, and we're gonna put in the CBM kit piece and see if it's oriented the right way. And if it's not, they do include these copper shims to put in, and it'll kind of change it by about 1/4 of a turn, I believe. -10 to -10 fittings installed right here. And I only have this one installed because I wanted to show you guys that this fitting I actually cut down. They recommend using 2 O-ring -10 fittings. So I just found an O-ring that fit very snug on this, rolled it down on both sides. I don't know if I'm gonna need this one. I did include one for that side and that side on the actual filter relocation, because those are NPTs on the other ends, so those should be fine. But this I cut down for the inlet because it was actually bottoming it out. I don't know if this is a limiting factor with the production for these or what, but there's no the AN bottoms out on that little lip in there, and I wanted to feel the O-ring get crushed, and there's kind of a little lip here. So this one does just fine, but now this way for the inlet with the cut in, I deburred it and everything, You can put it in, start it, please. And she should be good to go. So now I'm just gonna snug these up a little tight, not crazy tight. And I did put MPT tape on both ends. I don't know if it's overkill. I'm not gonna do it for this because they don't really, you never do that for the oil changes, and they have the O-ring here. And I did put silicone on this end to keep it from falling out when I put it in. In fact, these are 2 pieces, so I don't know why this wasn't given a little extra treatment. I guess they'd have to open it up on all ends because it kind of sits in there. No, because it's pushing, so they could have just done one. But you can see we're this way now, it's flush with the bottom instead of poking through. Whereas that one, they did give it a little lip to kind of protrude through. I'm sorry about the quality, but that's what's going on. Push it right back on. Boop. Relocation adapter in. Make sure you bottom this out before you accidentally start the fittings and then realize the whole thing is moving. Thankfully, it looks like our block is clocked in favor of not using the shims. I went ahead and did the -10 to -10 first, got it tight and snug, and then angled these just slightly more to their left before tightening down. That way I didn't have to do the bottom, and that way I could see it just kind of line up where I wanted it. I did flare this one a little bit more off. That way this will have plenty of room to have the lines put on, but there she is in all her glory. Trim down the oil relocation lines, and I believe I'm going to try to mount it like this so I can drop the oil filter in front of the front subframe, and I might incorporate just a fancy bracket to hold the electric power steering pump and the oil relocation filter area, just in the same thing, be done with it. But we got the intake mounted, and we've got the supercharger just kind of sitting on here for now. And as you can see, it is currently pushing the limits of where the throttle body is going to be. We can't have it going through the hood. So the solution to that is SendCutSend. A quick draft of some of these parts. So what we're looking at is, this is the throttle body. So it's not perfect, but as long as you got, you know, bowl distances, bowl hole distances, circle difference. What is interesting is the LE5 is a 2.5 hole intake, and the LSJ is surprisingly 3 inches. Didn't think there'd be that much of a difference, but that harness is currently for a 6-pin. So this LE5 intake, I'll see if there's a LS truck intake that's kind of an upgrade for the LE5, the Solstice guys. But until then, we're gonna get these plates drafted up because the throttle body can't really go here because it's gonna be hitting the hood. So we're gonna have to get creative with a little tube piece, just kind of drop down right here and just have it kind of be right here, and then we can have an air filter right here, whatever works. And then we also went ahead and drafted the shift boot cover just to kind of cover up what was the S12 area and have a hole open up for where the current ice and transmission is. So we're gonna plop it right on in, and it'll cover that big hole and then leave a opening right there, and then we'll be able to bolt it in right there, and right there. So, you know, just a quick little time saver. And the magic of video editing is that I can snap my fingers and then the parts will be here. Absolutely no bias whatsoever. But great lads. If you guys have any questions and I can maybe answer them, shoot them in the comments. But we've got parts. It's my first time personally ordering from them. And it just saves you so much time. I pride myself being a little fabricator, but it took me like maybe 3 minutes to draw both of these up, and they just come already good to go. This is the LE5 throttle body, and it dropped right on in here. So if anyone needs that part file, let me know. But this is going to go on the supercharger. This is going to go probably about right here. And when I was having this welded, I did want it a little bit farther down, but this is what we got. It's okay. We're going to relocate it. Hopefully have room for a filter, maybe right here. And we did get that centerpiece for the center console, so it will cover up that big hole right there. Hole in trans tunnel. No more hole in trans tunnel. Gonna bolt it in. We'll be good to go. It's cool because it's gonna be able to hold this center section for the carpet, because I did have to cut away right here. So it's kind of cool that it's gonna be able to hold that instead of worrying about it tearing right here and here. Our console only uses these two, so those will be the only two I have to pop back out. And then I'm just gonna need a hard rubber boot for this square and then a soft rubber boot for the side square for the center console. Got it fabbed up. I still have to clean it up, but we went ahead and welded it around, so tonight it's good. But this is a like 2.5-inch throttle body, and then I just used 3-inch exhaust piping, went all the way around. And this adapter, at the end of the day, this is limited to this intake size. It's kind of how they did it with limiting rally class stuff, so it's okay that the pipe kind of got mangled here. I did that so I had clearance for these bolts. That way I had a firm fit all the way around it. And these two pieces were from SendCutSend, so shout out to them. I am probably going to get these two pieces made. They are the underlight sections right here and right here. And then I'm also going to see if I can incorporate a new piece kind of for the bumper to also hold the new water to air cooler. That's going to be probably right here. But that's everything. All you got to do is get a draft and you're good to go. Until next time, we're going to do the manual pedal. We're going to do a little bit more for the routing for the supercharger stuff with the coolant. And then we're going to do some electric power steering setup and hopefully get them out for the radiator. Sun's out, Z's looking good, other Z's ready to come in here. But we got this intake piece. I did end up putting on some high temp epoxy on the welds just in case there's any pinholes. We've quadruple checked it and it is good to go. There's no way any leaks happen here, and it's also gonna get painted along with the supercharger to get rid of this horrible color. And we might just do the intake the same color, or the valve cover the same color as the car will be, so all that will match. I'm not big on paint, but as long as it runs, then we'll treat her right